Imagine this. One morning you wake up and suddenly everything is gone. Your wealth has vanished, your beloved family is no more, and even your health, the most precious thing you have, has been taken away. In just a single day, your entire world collapses. Sounds terrifying, doesn't it? And yet, this is exactly the story of a real man. His name was Job. What astonished everyone most was not his loss, but his response. Instead of blaming, raging, or falling into despair, Job fell to his knees and worshiped God. It sounds almost impossible, maybe even insane. But this story isn't just some ancient legend. Hidden within it is a profound secret, one that could completely transform the way you see life's toughest trials. So what is that secret? Stay with us, because together we're about to uncover the truth that enabled Job to stand firm in the midst of unimaginable storms. And trust me, whether you believe in God or not, you will discover something here of great value for your own life. But first, let's rewind time to understand who Job really was. The Bible describes him as a man who was upright, feared God, and shunned evil. He wasn't just a good person. He was one of the wealthiest and most respected men of his time. With thousands of livestock, countless servants, a large and joyful family, Job lived the kind of life anyone would envy. He was also a devoted father, constantly praying on behalf of his children after every feast, just to make sure they hadn't unknowingly sinned. In simple terms, Job had everything: wealth, honor, a happy family, and above all, an unshakable faith in God. His life seemed untouchable, perfectly secure. But then, one day, disaster struck without warning, opening the most heartbreaking, yet most extraordinary chapter of his life, asterisk, asterisk. One day, when the angels came to present themselves before God, Satan was also among them. God pointed to Job as an example of a righteous man, one who feared God and shunned evil. But Satan doubted and challenged, claiming that Job's faith was only based on material blessings. He insisted that if everything were taken away, Job would surely turn his back and curse God. So the Lord allowed Satan to test Job, but with clear limits. On a fateful day, messengers rushed him one after another, each bringing devastating news. His herds of livestock were stolen, his servants were slaughtered, and worst of all of Job's children died when a house they were in collapsed under a mighty windstorm. Each message struck like a dagger to his heart, until Job collapsed in overwhelming grief. He tore his robe, sat among the ashes, and wept bitterly for the losses no one could ever replace. Yet instead of cursing God, his lips uttered words of faith. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. This stands as one of the greatest moments of faith ever recorded in human history. But when Satan saw that Job remained faithful, he asked permission to strike his health. Soon Job's body was covered with painful sores from head to toe. He was weakened, sitting in ashes, scraping his wounds with a piece of pottery. His physical pain was unbearable, his spirit crushed almost beyond recognition. Even his wife, who had lost everything alongside him, even her own children, cried out in despair, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job answered firmly, "Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" Then Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, came to visit him. At first, they sat with him in silence for 7 days, mourning alongside their friend. But soon they began to speak, accusing him of hidden sins, insisting that such suffering must be punishment from God. Their words pierced Job's heart even deeper than his physical sores. In despair, Job lamented and cursed the day of his birth, but still he never cursed God. Later, a younger man named Elihu spoke, reminding Job that suffering can also be a form of God's discipline and instruction for mankind. And then came the turning point. God himself appeared in a whirlwind. He did not give Job a direct explanation for his suffering. Instead, he asked profound questions far beyond human understanding. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Can you bind the chains of the stars in the heavens? Through these questions, God revealed his greatness, his power over creation, and his sovereign rule over the universe. Confronted with such majesty, Job realized his own smallness and limitations. He confessed, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." In deep humility, Job repented in dust and ashes, acknowledging that there are mysteries too great for mankind to grasp. And in that moment of surrender, he finally found true peace. The story of Job is not merely about a man of the past. It echoes as an eternal message for us today. It shows that true faith is not built upon material blessings, but on a personal relationship with God Himself. It reminds us that even when we cannot understand the reason for suffering, we can trust that God is sovereign and His purposes are good. When we face trials, instead of asking why, we can learn to place our trust in Him, because it is often in the midst of suffering that we come to see God more clearly than ever before. The story of Job, a journey through the storm. Have you ever felt like life suddenly collapsed beneath your feet? Like everything you built, everything you loved, was swept away in a single storm? That is exactly what happened to a man named Job. His story did not end in ashes, though it began in unimaginable pain. It ended with restoration, but not in the way most people expect. Yes, Job received double of what he had lost: his wealth, his health, even his family legacy. But that was not the true gift. The greatest treasure was not what Job gained back, but what he discovered. You see, before the storm, Job had only heard about God. He knew of Him the way we sometimes know of distant stars, bright, mysterious, but far away. But after walking to the valley of suffering, Job encountered the living God. His faith was no longer secondhand knowledge. It became real. It became unshakable. That was his true victory. And this is where Job's story speaks to us today. Because faith is not proven when life is smooth and easy. Faith is tested, refined, and revealed when everything seems collapse, when the night feels endless, and yet we still choose to trust. Sometimes, the deepest wounds become the very doorway to the deepest revelation of who God is. What feels like the end may, in fact, be the beginning of transformation. Job shows us that God's restoration is not just about replacing what was lost. It's about reshaping the heart, strengthening the soul, and drawing us into a relationship so real that no storm can destroy it. So, when your own storms come, and they will, remember this: you are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. Even when you feel broken, hopeless, or unseen, the same God who carried Job through his darkest days will carry you. Hold on, believe, endure, because in the very middle of the storm, you may discover what Job discovered: that the greatest reward is not the restoration of things, but the presence of God Himself.